Let's discuss Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has grabbed most of the upside liquidity here, and we're building a lot of liquidity to the downside right now. And looking at the price here for Bitcoin also, it looks like we are going down, and it's really interesting to see now what will happen next. I'm gonna see and give my predictions here. So Bitcoin has been going up, and we can see every time we have been targeting that liquidity cluster and really grabbing the cluster. And right now on the 1 weekly chart, we can really see that most of the liquidity is being built up below us, which of course in theory means that we are gonna go down and grab that liquidity, right? If I zoom out a bit here for Bitcoin, let's go to the 2 weekly, then we can see a very similar story. Actually, I cannot see that much liquidity actually up here at the $67,000, $68,000 region above us, which I actually saw previously. So looks like that most of the liquidity lies here at $60,000, which of course has been the previous low here at $60,000, right? And if I go now to the monthly, let's have a look at that as well. The monthly is telling us a similar story. So we can see that a lot of liquidity really lies here at the $60,000 region, which makes me believe, yes, we are gonna go there eventually, but there is of course a lot of liquidity also above the current price, but quite high, like $76,000, $80,000 region. Now the question is, where are we gonna go? Right, let's look at Bitcoin and I can make some predictions here. But right now I don't see a very clear sign of direction. What I can see and what we did predict correctly in the past was that once we had the bounce to the upside, broke out of the symmetrical wedge, found the support here at the previous high, we eventually found that support, we found resistance at this previous level of support and resistance, which of course we found perfectly here all the way at the previous top at like $67,300. Now, we all know I'm gonna take short positions if we go a bit higher from here, because I eventually do believe we're gonna go down. Look at this, we have a lot of liquidity here on the downside of $60,000. Also, the bear market usually lasts 12 months. We know that it usually lasts for 12 months. And right now we are nowhere near there yet. It should be bottoming in October. Last time it was 12 months. The time before that it was also 12 months. So a lot of reasons to believe that the bear market is not over yet, but we can go a bit higher in the short term, and if we do, that's going to be good for me because I'm going to be taking a short position, but I'm definitely not going to take a short position from here. What I can see now on the charts is that we are still in an uptrend, right? Uptrends, of course, a higher low structure. We had the first low here, second low here, then we had a low here, and now we created a low right here. So this is clearly an upwards uptrend, and in my opinion, we can find a bounce here and go even higher to grab some of that liquidity up there, which is where I'm going to be entering short positions from. Now, where did we bounce? Well, we actually found a nice bounce here from the previous level from the previous top, which is also here. You can see if I put it right there, we can see this level has been previously the resistance, and now it has acted as, of course, support. So like I said, this level has been acting as resistance before, now it is support, and I think we can be going a bit higher, potentially creating a higher high, which is where I'm going to be entering short positions from. Looking here at Bitcoin and the funding rates, I don't really see a clear direction. Usually I know that the funding rates are very positive, so if people are really very longing the market, which you can see right here, that they're very positive, then price usually goes in the other direction. Right now they are not that positive, they're also not that negative, so I'm not seeing a clear trend or clear direction. Right here, for example, we saw that funding rates were very negative, and this pushed price up to liquidate all of these traders. Like I said, funding rates are plus or minus zero right now. They're fluctuating, slightly skewed to the positive side, which means usually we go down, but I want to be really seeing for a clear direction. I want to be seeing large funding rates, and so this chart is not really helping me at the moment. And as for Bitcoin, we're basically repeating what happened in February 2026, which is this pattern. We basically found support along this line, and this is what we have right now, right? We could find support from here, or we could break down and then find resistance on the same line. But essentially, the line that this guy is talking about is this line right here. Let me draw it out for you guys, and then this is the line. So we could go down and find some resistance here and go a bit higher. Personally, I think we're gonna go a bit higher, but eventually, most importantly, what I can predict with more certainty is that we're gonna eventually go lower. If you look at the liquidations, we have a lot of liquidity towards the bottom. And now let's talk about SpaceX. I mean, SpaceX had its IPO a few days ago, and right now it's starting to go down a bit. I mean, SpaceX had a valuation of $2 trillion. Elon Musk became the first billionaire in history, but you know what? Only 4% of circulating supply is right now on the market for SpaceX. And SpaceX also, if you look at this, they have generated just 18.5 billion in revenue last year, while Amazon, for example, has generated $717 billion in revenue. SpaceX is losing money. And in the meantime, SpaceX is actually the fourth largest company in the world in terms of market cap, with only 4% of supply that actually can be traded, bought and sold. And once more of this supply comes on the market, once more shares come on the market, I expect price to potentially go a bit further down. And look at this, the stock. So SpaceX is currently trading at roughly 110 to 113 times sales. And we know that sales are very low. And usually they should be around 3.5%. That's the S&P average. Nvidia, for example, is 20x, and that's already considered quite high. So there's a lot of, not institutional even, there's a lot of retail interest in SpaceX at the moment. And if you compare what happened to Tesla, actually, after they had the IPO, we shot up massively. And then we had a large relief rally once people started selling, once that initial FOMO started disappearing. Yes, I'm not saying it's a bad investment long term. Eventually, of course, Tesla went much, much higher. And I think SpaceX can also go much, much higher. But it is normal to see some form of relief. And let's say you're thinking about, should I invest in SpaceX? Should I invest in Bitcoin? Look, SpaceX is at a $2 trillion valuation. For SpaceX to double, we need trillions. We need $2 trillion of new influx of capital into the stock. For Bitcoin, it's at a $1.3 trillion valuation. So I think, especially now that we're also at the bottom of the bear market, Bitcoin presents a much better opportunity for investment, in my opinion, and needs a lot less capital to come in. There's a lot less FOMO. And usually when there's a lot of FOMO, when everyone is buying, you don't want to be buying an asset, right? Because that's usually when we see peaks. And also what I can see right here actually is, if I take the 200 weekly moving averages, we can see that we are right now bouncing from the 200 weekly moving average line. So we have a nice bounce from here. If I go to the last Bitcoin bear market, we actually went well below that. And the time before that, yes, we bounced from the 200 weekly, but let's see how many days it took us. From the top to the bottom, it took us approximately 364 days, right? I mentioned that the bear market usually lasts for a full year. And then last cycle, if I go from the top to the bottom, until we hit the bottom is obviously also about 365 days, but until we hit the 200 weekly, it was about 210 days, right? And now if I look at currently, we're also about a bit more, like 245 days from the moment we bounced, but essentially we're less than 365 days. So it makes me believe that we're gonna go a bit further down and potentially play out something similar to what we did last time, where we actually found the bottom 365 days after the top, and we found a bounce from somewhere between here, the 300 and the 350 weekly moving average line, which I think where we can find a bottom, which is like between $53,000 and $47,000. Somewhere in the low 50s is where I think we can find a bottom in, right? And what we need to talk about also is the FOMC meeting, which is now in less than 2.5 hours. So that by the time you watch this video, it's probably already happened. And there's currently a 99.6, so basically 100% likelihood that interest rates will not be reduced. They will remain the same with a target of 3.5 to 3.75%. And if I also look at the interest rates for future interest rates, like what are the predictions for the next FOMC meetings? Right now, for the next 4 meetings, the majority prediction is that they're going to remain the same. But after that, so from the 9th of December, actually, we can see that there's a higher likelihood that interest rates will actually be increased rather than decreased. And we know that that is not good for the markets, right? Interest rates have to be reduced for new money to be flowing into the markets. And finally, if I look at crude oil is right now approaching these levels that it has been previously. Right now here at this previous support, rejection level, but basically oil has gone down tremendously. I mean, from the peak, it was trading at like $120 per barrel. It has gone down already 36%. The peace deal potentially could be signed on Friday. We're gonna look and see if that actually happens. And that is of course a good thing for the markets, and inflation can calm down. And if that happens, let's see if these probabilities will change, if we can eventually reduce the interest rates further. But until then, let's see what Bitcoin will do. I mentioned in yesterday's video that Bitcoin will have a major move within the next 24 hours, and we had a move to the downside. You can see we broke down from this symmetric triangle, which I mentioned in yesterday's video. We broke to the downside, found support here from this previous resistance level, and I think we're gonna go a bit higher because we are right now in an uptrend. That's all for today's video. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.